Bonjour. Aujourd'hui, notre cours
Hello. In
portera sur la
today's class,
définition des
we'll
aires
look at the
protégées.
definition of protected areas. This may seem incidental to you, and yet it is extremely important, as we're going to see. The document to consult as a complement to the class are the IUCN Guidelines on Management Categories. They are published by the World Commission on Protected Areas. So, why should we be interested in this definition? Well, because, as we have seen, there are more and more protected areas. Over 200,000 today, covering more than 20 million kilometers square, as shown on this graph. They are more and more complex, as we will see when we look at management categories and forms of governance. Here, we can see the different categories that will be presented in our next class. So, it has become necessary to clarify what is and what isn't a protected area so that the tools, the knowledge, and the practices that are developed specifically for their management or good governance may be put to good use. The work to define protected areas already has a relatively long story, which starts in the 1930s, when the experts started to try and clarify the terminology used to name all the protected areas then in existence. Many works followed afterwards, in the course of international congresses, parks, and various meetings that took place, with a constantly improved definition that has progressively adjusted to the evolution of these territories. The definition currently in force, which we will look at today, was set in 2008 during the World Conservation Congress organized by the IUCN in Barcelona. So let's have a look at this definition. Charlotte Carabujoy, Vice President of the World Commission on Protected Areas for Western and Central Africa, presents it for us.
A protected area is a clearly defined geographical space, recognized, dedicated, and managed through legal or other effective means to achieve the long-term conservation of nature with associated ecosystem services and cultural values.
It is extremely important to properly understand each word and what they represent. The best way to do that is yet again to read the guidelines on the definition carefully. This isn't very long. It is covered in chapters 1 and 2 of this book, less than 10 pages in total. Every word in this definition is important. I would like to insist here on a few of them in particular. They are the words defined, recognized, managed, and of course, conservation of nature. So, defined. A protected area is a territory that can be identified. We know where it starts and where it ends. So, this means that its boundaries can be identified, but this doesn't necessarily require markings, signs, or fences. Sometimes it can actually be very difficult to follow the boundaries of a park, especially when they are associated with natural elements like a river or a forest that can, of course, change with time. For example, the Mount Nimba Integral Reserve in Ivory Coast. A part of its boundary was created artificially in 1944 by planting a bamboo line. It has, of course, evolved over time into a full-blown forest, which makes it hard today to know where the preserve starts precisely. Okay, that might seem of little importance, but when there are mineral resources, which location depends on a few dozen meters, this can become a serious issue. This scenario is actually quite frequent. Let's listen to Isidore talk about it. The location of the Kahuzi Biga is confusing in its low-altitude part. Decades ago, at the end of the 1970s, or in the early 80s, we ran experiments. We lacked solid markers, so we planted bamboos along the boundaries. The land is fertile, so over time the bamboos grew on both sides of the boundary, covering at least 30 to 40 meters. Until today, we are struggling to find the exact spot where we planted the first bamboos. The stump has developed. It's a plant that thrives very fast. The stump developed, and it's still causing problems today. It is often not advisable to put a plant marker, especially those that grow fast. That is really a serious problem. Let's look at the word recognized. A protected area is a human construction. It may include various territories, ecosystems, associate various stakeholders, but it must be recognized at a certain level, national, international, or local. However, that doesn't necessarily mean there must be a text, a decree, or a bylaw, for example. So, a protected area may be recognized by a traditional authority, such as, for instance, the community of a specific area or sacred sites, and there are many of them in Africa. Of course, a protected area may also be recognized by a private entity that owns it or an international or local NGO. As for the word managed, a protected area is a defined, recognized territory, as we've just seen, and it is managed. This means that decisions are made for this territory, so it can't be a mere line on a map, like those famous paper parks we've mentioned, and we'll certainly discuss again. However, this doesn't necessarily imply interventions, as a management decision may consist, for example, in leaving the ecosystem without any human intervention, as in the case in some sacred sites that are completely off-limits, or in island reserves, like the Aldabra Island in the Seychelles, which you can see here. Finally, let's talk about the conservation of nature. It is, of course, the most crucial notion in the definition. A protected area is a defined territory that is recognized and managed to conserve nature. So, it is about preserving the environment as a whole, in situ, and long term. It is nature that is concerned as a whole, globally. A zoo, for example, protects animals but outside of their environment. It is not a protected area. Another example, a military area where grazing has been deferred for years, will gradually host a wealth of different species of fauna and flora. It's obvious. But it remains a military area that may be used as such overnight. So it is not a protected area. There are, of course, many possible names for protected areas. Let's take a few examples that are found in Africa. National park, national reserve, classified forest, community area, sacred site, game sanctuary, marine park. What matters in order to know whether these territories are protected areas is not their name, but their final goal. Some classified forests are protected areas because they were classified to conserve a complete ecosystem. But other forests are only for the production of timber, eucalyptus, for example, and are not protected areas. This applies to all designations. In conclusion, a protected area is a territory with certain specific characteristics, as we've just seen, and the primary goal of which is the conservation of nature. Other territories may also be useful to protect the environment. Let's not forget that protected areas only cover about 15% of the planet. It's really a lot, but it isn't enough. Fortunately, other areas also contribute to the preservation of nature. Now, take some time to think about the different sites that you know and try to apply the definition to see if there are protected areas or not. Do it with 3 or 4 sites to get used to the definition. Also try the reverse exercise and find sites that are important for nature but are not protected areas. You know some of these for sure. That's it. We've reached the end of the class. The next episode will be on the management categories of protected areas. Have a great day.